Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. On Monday night, while addressing the UN Security Council, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski stated that the road to peace in Ukraine remains the same. That is, Russia must withdraw its forces from Ukrainian soil. On top of that, Poland's chief diplomat reaffirmed European support for a just and lasting peace in the war-torn country.
The right way forward remains. Russia should immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all its forces from Ukraine's territory. We as Europeans will continue to stand side by side with Ukraine to achieve a just and lasting peace. Peace through strength, the only kind Kremlin respects. Finally, I'd like to dedicate to this Council a maxim authored by my predecessor as Foreign Minister of Poland, a survivor of Auschwitz and of Stalinist prisons, Professor Władysław Bartoszewski. When you are in doubt how to behave, behave with decency. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that Russian leader Vladimir Putin accepts the idea of European peacekeepers in Ukraine as part of a possible peace deal. Now, the comments came during an official visit of French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House. However, Trump avoided commenting on whether Ukraine could regain its occupied territories.
The European troops may go into Ukraine as peacemakers. So when the agreement is done, they can watch that everything's followed properly. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the European countries, I don't want to speak for France, but I know that the presidents talked about doing that also. I think that'll be a very good day when we can go in as peacekeepers as opposed to what's going on right now with everybody being killed. Yeah, he will accept that.
He will accept
I've asked him that question.
You talked to him?
I've asked him that question.
Is France going to lift the block on the
Because he's not, look, if we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind. But I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
Now, at that same press conference, Emmanuel Macron interjected to correct Trump regarding the topic of loans. Now, Trump had claimed that all European assistance was provided as loans, with frozen Russian assets serving as collateral.
I mean, this war costed all of us a lot of money. And this is the responsibility of Russia, because the aggressor is Russia.
Should the US be compensated?
So at the end of the day, this frozen asset should be part of the negotiation, all in all.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear,
Yeah.
we have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will have paid for that.
If you
This is my
believe
wish.
that.
We're going now live to Kyiv, where remarks delivered at that meeting between Trump and Emmanuel Macron are drawing quite some responses from the Ukrainian public. Now, let's join our correspondent Oz Chatterjee, who is in the Ukrainian capital. Good morning, Oz. So now do tell us, what do some of the Ukrainians that you've had a chance to speak to, what are they saying about those statements made by Macron and Trump?
Well, it's another morning after the night before, and Ukrainians have woken up to having to react to a whole bunch of new comments from Trump in that press conference with Macron, but also the United Nations vote in which the United States voted with Russia, North Korea, Belarus against a motion which condemned the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Even Iran abstained on that motion. So that's something that's causing huge concern and alarm here in Ukraine, as are many of the comments made by Donald Trump last night. Now, it's not all necessarily bad, as the news coming from the US press about the mineral deal states that the US is committed to maintaining Ukraine as a free, sovereign and secure nation. Now, that's going to be reassuring some people. in the way that the behavior of this administration currently is not. There has been a lot of outrage about the UN vote from Ukrainians expressing their feelings about this on social media. But again, as you're seeing with the way Macron is behaving around Trump, is the Ukrainians, the Europeans, they're trying their best to keep the US administration on board in approval of the kinds of measures that they are trying to make. But Donald Trump repeatedly keeps pushing himself back to this pro-Russian line. For example, in that press conference last night, Donald Trump refused to call Vladimir Putin a dictator, even though he has called Zelenskyy a dictator. He said he doesn't use that word lightly, and he didn't want to use it towards Vladimir Putin, but he didn't seem to have a problem using it to the democratically elected leader of Ukraine. So these kinds of issues are causing great alarm and concern to Ukrainian people. They're hoping that Kyiv's diplomacy will manage to secure a path through all of this so that Ukraine can find some sort of agreement this year. But the difficulties facing the Ukrainians are mounting.
So much, Oz Chatterjee, coming to us live from Kyiv. And staying on Ukraine, 2 people were killed and 6 more wounded after an overnight Russian strike on the Sumy region. Now, local authorities reported at least 169 explosions, prompting neighboring countries, including Poland, to scramble their fighter jets in response. Now, Moscow also launched an attack on Kyiv, wounding 1 person. Now, in the strikes, the Russian army used drones, mortars, and heavy artillery. In Sumy, 2 drones killed 1 individual and damaged 2 apartment buildings. Meanwhile, the town of Myropilya was attacked with drones and guided aerial bombs, wounding 3 civilians and damaging 6 houses. Moscow also targeted the Ukrainian capital, wounding a woman and partially destroying a house along with neighboring buildings. Responding to the overnight strikes, Warsaw scrambled its jets and placed its air defense systems on high alert. The president of the European Council, Antonio Costa, is consulting EU leaders ahead of the Extraordinary Council Summit scheduled for March 6th. But now, before that takes place, Costa has arrived in Warsaw to meet with the Polish Prime Minister. Our reporter Ovidiusz Nicea is on site. Morning, Ovidiusz. So what can we expect from today's meeting?
Costa is coming to Warsaw from Kyiv, where he went to commemorate the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion. He has declared his support for Ukraine and also said that Europe will keep on supporting Ukraine. I'm in front of the building where the meeting is taking place between the President of the European Council and the Polish Prime Minister. As you said, Antonio Costa is consulting European leaders ahead of a special summit which will take place on March 6th. This summit will be about the support for Ukraine, but also about strengthening Europe's defense. This is not the only visit to Warsaw today, as later today, also the president of Latvia is scheduled to visit Poland to meet the Polish president, Andrzej Duda, but also the speakers of the Polish parliament and the Polish Senate. Back to you, Diana.
Thank you so much, Ovidiusz Nicea. We will be coming back to you throughout the day for those developments. Moving on now, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced on Monday that she wants Ukraine to join the EU by 2030 or earlier. EU affairs ministers are in Brussels today to discuss this matter and more. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins now joins us from the Belgian capital. Good morning, Angela. Now, what are you hearing from the EU affairs ministers regarding this today? What's on the agenda?
Yes, so we've only heard resounding support from the EU affairs ministers this morning regarding that announcement from European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen yesterday. She was in Kyiv with roughly 13 other EU leaders to mark their ongoing support for Ukraine amid that country's 3rd year weathering of Russia's invasion. Her announcement also came with a €3.5 billion support package. Part of that money will help Ukraine acquire more military military support. But from foreign ministers, we put this question regarding Ukraine's EU accession, particularly to Poland's EU Affairs Minister Adam Szłapka. While he was reticent to give dates, he said it was high on Poland's EU Council presidency's agenda. Here is what he told reporters this morning.
The things we are going to do during Polish presidency is to open the first cluster, and as we are ready also to open the next 6 cluster. But there will be very tough and difficult discussion because there is no unanimity among the member states. So we are determined to move forward this process. I'm not going to talk about dates.
Yes, so these clusters present a bit of a legal minefield for Ukraine. They'll have to wade through that if they want to join the EU by 2030 or earlier. But that General Affairs Council is happening today, and this item is on the agenda amid some other important matters, including the 2025 European Commission budget. But there will be a press conference scheduled for later today where we'll hear the final outcomes of those talks. That's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
Thank you so much, Angela. We will be coming back to you later on. Pope Francis rested well last night. However, his critical condition does remain with slight signs of improvement. The news broke Monday evening as crowds of Catholics and some 27 cardinals gathered in the St. Peter's Square to pray for the pontiff's health. Now, the rosary was led by the Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who has been touted by many as the prime candidate to succeed Pope Francis. Rosaries will now be said and presided over by cardinals every evening. The Italian Bishops' Conference has called for more prayers throughout the remainder of Pope Francis's time at the hospital. Also, church leaders are coordinating a series of special masses to involve all churches across Italy. In the meantime, the Gemelli Hospital, where the pontiff is being treated, began a series of, quote, spiritual activities to be performed at the facility each day. And with that, we end this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and do stay on TVP World for more news and features.